Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brandy Ladine. This video submission is in regards to week two's template, and I chose to do template number 2 out of the 2 options about the resident. So just to summarize real quickly, the Washington resident died a result of severe infection. Following death, the health department discovered jars of home canned food in his home and confirmed that he had passed from bacterial food poisoning after consumption of the canned food, and then urged everyone in the community to follow proper canning guidelines. So to answer the questions within the prompt, the first is describe what type of organism would be responsible for a foodborne illness associated with canned food. So what I think of initially is a canned jar with some sort of mason jar that has a seal-tight lid that you kind of crank on. In these types of jars, if sealed properly, which if the food's canned, it probably was, not proper technique, obviously, but sealed tightly, there would be no source of oxygen replenishing possible. But obviously, there's a source of oxygen when the can is first opened and the products are put into the can. That being said, I would go out on a venture to say that the bacteria was potentially an aerotolerant anaerobe, which is an organism that can grow well with or without presence of oxygen. The next question is what conditions of oxygen cause this organism to grow inside of the can? Like I just said, when you first put the can together, oxygen is present. You've got oxygen molecules all throughout the different layers that you're doing. Oxygen is already present in the can because it's been open in the open environment, and there's oxygen within the open environment. So the bacteria must have been able to tolerate some sort of oxygenation. When the container is sealed, though, the oxygen is limited and eventually degrades, but the bacteria were still able to continuously replicate and detoxify any oxygen within the container. Third question, based on the requirements of oxygen, is this organism most likely capable of growth outside of the can? I would say yes, that the organism would be capable of growing outside of the can. It was first introduced from an aerobic environment, so I would see no reason as to why it wouldn't be able to, especially if it is an aerotolerant, since they can grow sufficiently with or without oxygen. They have no issue duplicating either way. And then the last question is how are organisms classified based on their oxygen requirements? So we went over this in class, just to summarize. So we have 5 different types of bacterial organisms that we can classify on their oxygen requirements. So we have obligate anaerobes, which are only able to grow without the presence of oxygen. So if there's any oxygen, they cannot grow in the slightest. We have obligate aerobes, which are only able to grow within the presence of oxygen. They must have it to be able to replicate. We have facultative anaerobes, which grow better with oxygen, but they also have the ability to grow in unoxygenated areas. They just won't grow as efficiently as if they had sources of oxygen. Aerotolerant anaerobes, like previously mentioned earlier in this video, they don't care. They will grow well in an environment with oxygen or well with an environment without oxygen. They're able to detoxify and they're able to synthesize the oxygen regardless, or synthesize without. And then the last type is the microaerophiles, which I don't feel are as common. These are bacteria that grow with limited supply of oxygen. So if there's an abundant amount, they probably won't grow very well. If there's none, they won't grow. When they're in that kind of lower than average zone of oxygen, they're able to reproduce sufficiently and gain the energy needed to keep that cycle going. Okay, thank you.